Well, hi, gang. Welcome back to the Coffee with Craft podcast. Hey, before we dive into this week's episode, I want to remind you where we've been and where we're going with the current series that we're in. The series that we're in is looking at 4 creatives that inspire me personally and pulling some nuggets of wisdom out and talking about what I've learned from them and what maybe you can learn from them as well. And last week we looked at Peter McKinnon, a photographer and filmmaker on YouTube, and I hope you checked out last week's episode. And if not, I hope you go back and check it out after listening to this week's episode. But this week's episode, I'm super excited because we're taking a look at Casey Neistat, one of the OG YouTubers. Everyone knows Casey, right? He's a fun and awesome filmmaker on YouTube. And today, specifically, we're looking at a talk he gave at a Converter Kit conference. And so I'm super excited about that and pulling some nuggets of wisdom out of this short little over a minute clip we're going to be taking a look at from that conference. But hey, before we dive into today's episode, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Coffee with Craft. If you could do me a huge favor and like this podcast wherever you're listening to it, whether on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, share it with a friend, maybe share it on your social media, and definitely leave a rate on iTunes and write a review. That would be super, super helpful for me and the podcast. And if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel where I'm also putting out this podcast and I'll be uploading videos regularly there, I would super appreciate that as well. Link to that in the show notes. Other than that, gang, we're going to dive into today's episode looking at Casey Neistat. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Coffee with Craft.
Well, hey, gang. Today, like I said earlier in the intro, we're looking at Casey Neistat. And for those of you who don't know, Casey Neistat is a YouTuber, a filmmaker, entrepreneur. He does a lot of really, really cool things. Casey's been making YouTube videos, man. I scrolled all the way back through his channel. He's been making YouTube videos for 11 years. This guy is crazy awesome. I've been following Casey probably for about 8 years myself. He got really huge after doing daily vlogs. Like, that was his big thing. Like, he just started to start vlogging daily and making a movie every single day. And it was really awesome. I remember Casey Neistat vlogs being a regular part of my day. I'd come home from whatever I was doing, I'd sit down, I'd watch Casey Neistat vlog. That was a huge part of my day. And I got really excited like towards the end of 2020 when he started daily vlogging again. Like, I'm on his YouTube channel right now scrolling as I'm recording this, and man, there was probably a 6 month or 4 or 5 month period where he was uploading again and almost uploading daily. And it was so awesome. And I had missed Casey making videos, and then he stopped making videos again. And I was like, but man, he is so good and talented. I'm sure you've heard of Casey Neistat. Dude has 12 million followers or 12 million subscribers on YouTube. So I'm sure you've either subscribed to him or followed him before. He's really awesome. If not, you should go check him out. But today we're looking specifically at a talk he gave at a Converter Kit conference back in 2018. And this talk was titled How to Be Heard in a Noisy World. And we're going to pull a specific minute out of this clip. This talk's like an hour long. We're pulling like only a minute out of this clip, and we're going to talk about this minute for the whole episode because there's a couple of really good things in there that I think we could all learn from. And so we're going to dive into that right now.
And that's why when baby mama dumped me, I was like, okay, well, I need to chase this down. And I moved to New York City. And it was a hustle and it was a struggle. And I think, again, so much of what I've been able to share with the world, so much of what's been received via my YouTube channel and social media outlets has been sort of this, 2015 till now kind of version of my life, when the reality is there were 10 years of real hardship, 10 years of real struggle living in New York City, 10 years of living in an apartment that was effectively filled up with undocumented immigrants and people that just got let out of prison. An apartment where I shared a bathroom with 20 other units on the floor, units being a room with no kitchen. And it was gnarly. Like, that was my life. And all the while I was just making. And the hustle part of that was that I never said no to anything. I never said no to anything because I could always see an opportunity no matter what it was. If it was a bar mitzvah video, then I was like, well, maybe someone will be at this bar mitzvah. that could be the key to the next door I want to walk through. If it was a wedding video, I was like, well, maybe the bride's dad will be that guy. Maybe the bride's mom is an executive at a media company. Like everything that came my way, if it involved a camera, I saw it as an opportunity.
Man, there was a lot of great stuff in that minute clip. I hope you go and you watch the video. I have it linked in the description of this podcast, or you can search it, How to Be Heard in a Noisy World by Casey Neistat. It's like one of the first videos that pops up when you search that specifically. It's a really good hour-long talk. I listened to it the other day while I was playing Call of Duty in prep for this podcast, and so I really, really appreciate it. I actually listened to it twice. It's that good. But the big thing we're going to pull out of here is 3 key words. 2 that he said, 1 that I realized by the tone in his voice as I was listening to it. But the first of the key word is hardship. Casey talks a lot about the hardship he had in growing up. And you see this throughout a couple different talks that he gives and a couple different podcasts that he does. Casey grew up in a poor environment. He ended up being a high school dropout, getting a girl pregnant, living with baby mama, as he refers to her, in a trailer park. He talks in this talk specifically about working in a kitchen and making like only $300 a week, barely enough money, couldn't put gas in the car, couldn't afford a cheeseburger from McDonald's. He talks about being that poor. And he talks about the hardship even in that clip specifically about moving to New York City, living in an apartment that wasn't great, that was basically a room that didn't have a kitchen with a shared bathroom with multiple people on the floor. He talks over and over again about this hardship. And it got me thinking about hardship in my life and hardship that I've experienced. It was summer of 2018 that I lived in a bedroom of the people from my old church that I quit. So I quit this church job and I lived with this amazing couple. They were an amazing older couple who were retired, who loved me, and I built a really great relationship with. I moved into their spare bedroom and I lived there for an entire summer, and I was making probably about $300 a week myself. Like, no joke, I was making $300 a week and working an internship that was only going to pay me $1,000 by the end of it. Now, mind you, I'm working an internship with a college degree, having been doing my job as a student pastor for 2 years, grossly underpaid at that first job. I then jumped into an internship because I couldn't find anything else and I needed money. And I knew that $1,000 could help get me into an apartment when summer was up. So if I didn't find a job in ministry, I would land some other job and move out of the couple's basement or spare bedroom and move into an apartment on my own. I knew that $1,000 would be helpful by the end of summer, but I remember grinding so much during that period of time. I remember putting so much effort in during that period of time and making no money. And so when Casey's talking about having only $300 coming in, I resonated so much with that because I myself was in a spot not long ago where I was making no money. Like, I think back to summer of 2018, that was 2019, 2020, 3 years ago. Effectively 3 years ago was that summer. I was making no money, and I remember feeling so defeated in the hardship that I was going through. And maybe you're there right now. Like, maybe you're going through a hardship. Maybe it feels difficult. Like, let's not be so unwise to know that 62% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. That 10 million Americans are unemployed because of this pandemic. That $90,000 is the average amount of debt for the average American, not counting a house. That's insane to me. Like, that $90,000 in debt is student loans, credit cards, car loans, that kind of stuff. So let's not ignore the fact that someone listening to this show right now is probably going through something difficult. And it may not even be financial. It may be spiritually, emotionally, physically, something difficult. And hardship is one of those things that can either make or break you. It can either make or break you. And I remember being in the tough moment in 2018, going through my hardship and wondering what I was even going to do, how I was going to pay my bills. I remember I have a really good friend, his name was Travis. And me and Travis, we would go every night to the same place. And I remember one night as we're at this place having a conversation like we did every night, I broke down in tears. And I said, I don't see a way out. And I drove home that night, bawling my eyes out. I went to bed that night, bawling my eyes out. I couldn't find a way out. And maybe you're there right now. And I want to say, hey, if you're there right now, it's okay. You're going to get through it. I believe you can push through this moment. And I believe there are people who want to help you push through this moment. I believe that. But I also believe that when you're going through a hardship, it's important to look at things the way Casey looked at them when he talks about this next word. And that word is opportunity. Casey talks a lot about how he looked for opportunity after opportunity, that anything that had to do with the camera, he was searching for. And what if this thing led to this thing because the father of a bride was there and knew somebody? And that was his big thing. He had an eye for opportunity. And he goes on later in the talk talking about how one opportunity led to one thing and another thing led to another thing. And it's a really cool story. Like I said, go check out the talk. But the question is, when we're faced with hardship, do we see opportunity? I think that's a really big question, an important question to talk through and answer. When we're faced with hardship, do we see opportunity? I was in the midst of my unemployment / working this internship to pay $1,000, making $300 a week in this other job when I started The Story of Craft, which is my own personal brand. It's when I got really into writing on my blog. It's when I got ready to launch this podcast. It's when I got ready to do everything I'm doing now. I saw an opportunity. In the midst of everything going on, I started to reclaim my story because I saw the opportunity and I lunged at it. And one opportunity led to another. Because I started writing and because I started podcasting, my opportunity led to a TEDx talk. That opportunity led to me speaking at camps and retreats and being asked by people to come speak at camps and retreats. And those opportunities led to me writing my first ebook. Those opportunities led to me blogging more. Those opportunities led to me putting money into my podcast to want to make it even better. Opportunity after opportunity has led to one thing and another. And not just personally in the side hustle world, right? But even in my professional life. One opportunity led me to Cincinnati to work in an urban environment with urban students, pouring in and investing in them, running an after-school program that reached 100 students a week. And that opportunity led to me working with mission organizations in Cincinnati to reach those students, even in the midst of a pandemic, partnering with great ministries to reach underprivileged people who were even more impoverished because of a pandemic. And then all those opportunities led to the job I'm at now, a job that I love and a job that I'm thriving in. All of this wouldn't have happened if I didn't see opportunity. And the same is said for you right now. Whether you're in hardship or not, do you look at everything that you're going through as an opportunity, as a chance to get to where you want to go? Because that's a really big question and an important question to ask ourselves. Do we see going to work at the restaurant as an opportunity? Do we see going to work every day at our 9 to 5 as an opportunity? Do I see this podcast as an opportunity? Opportunity in seeing that, hey, one thing can lead to another, especially if you do it well, is incredibly important. And so the thing that I pulled out of this talk, as well as like dealing with hardship and going through hardship, is that hardship gives you an eye for opportunity. And if you can look around and see, hey, there might be something more here, this might lead to something more, then that something more can radically change our lives. My life is a product of that idea, of seeing opportunity and seizing it and chasing after it. I'm still doing this podcast 3 years later and have reached over 2,000 people with this show because I saw an opportunity. I've been paid to speak because I saw an opportunity. I've been paid to consult with other small creators to help them launch their stuff because I saw an opportunity. That didn't just happen overnight. It took time, it took effort, and it took going through the hard things. I got the job I'm at now because I saw opportunity. And I kept pushing forward even when things at my last job were difficult. And so, when hardship comes, will you see opportunity? And the last thing we're talking about today is having an appreciation. Casey didn't necessarily talk about this, but you heard it in the tone of his voice as he went through his story. He had this profound appreciation for the struggle he went through and the things he had been through and what he had accomplished and where he was today. And man, the thing that stuck out to me is this idea and this question of, do we appreciate the moments we're in? Do we appreciate what we have achieved? And are we thankful for how far we've come? Especially myself when I ask those questions, because I have to remind myself that I have come so far. That there is this deep appreciation for where I was just 3 years ago. 3 years ago in summer of 2018, I couldn't pay my bills. Now I can. Now I'm putting more money towards tackling debt and building savings and all that stuff. Why? Because I have the opportunity. But those opportunities came because I grinded really hard. I worked really hard to accomplish the things I needed to accomplish to get to where I am today. And so I have an appreciation for that. An appreciation for how far I've come. Because I didn't come this far overnight. I didn't get to episode 37 of the podcast overnight. It took a long time. It took 3 years. But hey, here we are. And I hope that you have an appreciation for where you're at in your life. It's taken time to get to where you are. And maybe you're still not where you want to be. And that's okay. Lean into the hard moment. Find the opportunity. See the opportunity in the things around you. And go forward with appreciation. Appreciation for what you've been through. Appreciation for what you accomplished. And appreciation for who you're becoming. Hey, that's this week's episode of the Coffee with Craft podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it as we've been diving through this episode talking about Casey Neistat. I hope you check out that whole talk he did from Converter Kit. It's really, really good. Hey, next week we're taking a break from this series for 1 week. I turn 26 next Saturday, which is crazy and insane. And so I'm working on thoughts and reflections for when I turn 26 years old and what the past few years of my life in my 20s have been. And now that I'm moving from mid 20s to towards that late 20 kind of range, I want to talk about it. And I want to look forward to what I want the next 4 years of my life to look like before I hit 30, because I have some big things I still want to accomplish before I'm 30 years old. And I want to talk about them with you, my friends, here on the podcast, because we're friends, right? I think so. Anyway, I'm awkward. So I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you have an amazing week ahead. And I will see you next week on the Coffee with Craft podcast.